Welcome back to Movies Are So Back, the YouTube movie review channel where I, Ethan Simmie, ask the question, are movies so back? We have completed the Cold Harbor file, and we have reached the end of season 2 of Severance, something that I thought, quite honestly, would never ever happen considering how long it's taken us to get here. But did the final episode of season 2 of Severance live up to the hype? Live up to the incredible heights and expectations that people have put upon it? Yes, but with a caveat. I have thoughts and feelings, so let's talk about this episode. Of course, this is going to be full spoilers for the season 2 finale of Severance. Now, the episode is titled Cold Harbor. We finally finished the Cold Harbor file, which we have been working towards for so long now, and we have a better understanding of what this Cold Harbor file is actually for and actually does. Now, what I gathered out of this is that the Cold Harbor file, the project, the testing, is really a multifaceted, two-pronged approach to Severance and to what Lumen is trying to accomplish here. Facet number 1 is testing the Severance chip to see what is the deepest, darkest pains that will break the barrier, and ultimately they're hoping by the end of the 25th file, which is in fact Cold Harbor, that nothing will be strong enough to break the barrier of Severance. Hence why the 25th door that Gemma goes through is, in fact, her most painful, most traumatic moment of her life, in which she did lose her child, and Mark disassembled the crib, and things officially boiled over for Mark and Gemma, which we learned in episode 7. So, the idea that Severance is impenetrable and is the best that it can be is attached to this Cold Harbor file. Now, the other side of the Cold Harbor file is that Keir wants to come back. He wants to embody somebody's body, and we see this kind of through the animatronic that Mr. Milchek is conversing with throughout this episode. This idea that Keir, in a form fashion, in the four tempers, in the kind of consciousness, is reanimated. And I think that Cold Harbor is really set out to do this, because there are essentially 25 different consciousnesses to Gemma and to her soul, to her tempers, and Keir coming back is ultimately the grand agendum that he does talk about. So I'm very happy that we got answers to what officially Cold Harbor is, and I'm also very happy that we got answers to what the goats are for. Even though I think there's a little bit more there, we did understand more about the goats. Now, if you have been watching my reviews on a weekly basis, you'll understand that one of my big criticisms of Severance Season 2 is that we are asking too many questions, and we are expanding too large, and we are not getting enough answers, and we are not focusing and honing in enough on the things that matter. I feel like the finale did a pretty good job of remedying most of that. I don't feel like it did a perfect job, and I still have my problems with this episode and with the way that the season went as a whole, but I do want to give credit that we got a lot of answers to a lot of our questions, so that made me very happy. Now, I really enjoyed a lot of the artistic decisions that went into this episode. Specifically, I feel like it was the kind of most bold and brave episode from an artistic standpoint that we have seen so far this season. Even though we did get episode 7, again, I wasn't as high on that episode as a lot of people were. I think it was special, but I don't think it was like that crazy special. I think this episode actually more artistically special. Two things that I wanted to call out here, really big homages and notes to 1970s kind of new American cinema with the snap zooms and the way that we are framing people and blocking people, and kind of the really traumatic, dark, thematic overtones that we saw at that time period in cinema. And then, of course, the kind of 1960s, late 1960s French New Wave that Jessica Lagagne mentioned, and kind of the after the episode thing as well, that we get with a lot of these slow-mos and freeze frames, and especially the use of color in this episode. I loved their reference and their homages to these really big, bold time periods in cinematic history that really mattered and have gotten us to where we are today. I loved that. I really enjoyed every single time we got a really great snap zoom on somebody. It was a hoot. I really have 3 big bold points that I want to talk about for this episode, kind of the 3 big acts that happened, Act 1, 2, and 3. We'll start with Act 1. Of course, the conversation that opens up this episode between Innie Mark and Outie Mark. I think technically very proficient, very effective. I think it worked really well narratively, makes sense, gets us to where we need to go in the final act, and justifies a lot of the decisions that we make at the very final moments of this episode. So I thought the groundwork that it laid was very impressive. Now, I will say that I don't think the reveal of Miss Cobell telling Innie Mark what MDR does was quite as big and substantial as maybe the show wanted it to be. We kind of know that. Those of us that have been watching it, maybe deep diving on some theories and catching up on details, we knew that the four tempers were being refined. I will make a note here that Miss Cobell sounded interested at the fact that Mark mentioned that Irving knows about this hallway and knows where the elevator is. And I think that kind of piqued her interest into wondering how Irving might know that. I kind of caught on a little inflection on her voice there and her kind of facial expression. So I think overall, really enticing, really great ground setter for the episode. Now, the second thing here to mention about this episode is kind of the biggest sticking point that a lot of people have been talking about here, especially from a visual standpoint, the big, loud, intense marching band scene that we get where Mr. Milchek leads the marching band for the completion of the Cold Harbor file. Now, they needed to one-up the Waffle Party. I get that. They needed to go big and bold, and this is a great day in history. As Lumen so eloquently puts it, Mark is at the center of this great day in history. And while I'm thinking about it, the painting, the mural that we see that is conducted in the hallway of Lumen, beautiful stuff, really incredible visuals there. I have a problem with this scene. Can I tell you? I think that this is just okay. I think that this is just okay. And I'm really mixed on this whole marching band situation because it really is a humongous deus ex machina for this episode. It is literally there just to create a physical stir to allow Mark and Helly to depart on their ways, on their missions, after completing Cold Harbor, to go to the hallway, to go to the elevator, to find Gemma. If that marching band is not physically there, we don't have a good excuse for Mark and Helly, to part ways. I have a big problem with this. I think that is just a little, I don't know, kind of lame. Honestly, I think it's a little bit lame that we have to have this big, bold thing, but it's really just to move our plot and our narrative forward to the next big thing that is happening. It's cool to look at. I have a lot of questions in terms of what's the purpose? You tell me this band, this whole area of Lumen is dedicated to these performances. Where else are they performing at? I think it just lies a little outside of the structure of Severance and the importance of every single little minute detail. This is just kind of maybe an oversight on that. I like a lot of the things surrounding this. I think it was entertaining to watch. Of course, it was incredible to see. I think technically really impressive stuff. Mr. Milchek, incredible. I think there's a lot of good things here. I think it's a little, I don't know. I don't know if ridiculous is the right word. I feel a little bit rude using that word because, of course, a lot went into this, but I think it is just a little bit overblown, the use of this marching band scene. And finally, we have everything that transpires after the marching band scene. Now, I'm going to focus on kind of the final moments here of the episode. There's a ton and a million things to break down, but I really want to hone in on a couple things here. Loved the hallway fight scene with Drummond. I thought that was great. I will say again, a little deus ex machina from this episode to insist on Drummond and the woman and the goat going into a room and there being one gun with one bullet and oh no, Drummond's the bad guy and she doesn't want to let go of the goat. I knew that was going to happen, and I think that's again a little bit kind of lazy from the show. But I will say, we'll give it credit, kind of turned around when the gun ends up being used in the elevator, and we switch from Innie to Outie Mark, and I thought that was pretty impressive, a great use of that kind of tool there. So I loved the fighting, I loved the hyper violence of this episode. I thought it was really a new direction for Severance, which was really engaging. Now, I said that Act 1, the conversation between Innie Mark and Outie Mark, really lays the groundwork for a lot of the decisions that are made here in the final moments in the final act of this episode, and I stand by that, and I recognize that, and I think it is really impressive because at the end of the episode, we get to Mark in the hallway, freeing Gemma, letting her go in the stairwell, and turning back and staying with Helly, something that I feel like we kind of always knew was going to happen, but maybe just didn't trust was going to happen. And again, I give credit to the groundwork that this episode in particular has laid for this decision with Mark and this really kind of indecisiveness and distrust between Innie Mark and Outie Mark, and how they actually literally don't trust each other and what they are going to do and what they are going to say. Now, technically, he did do what his Outie asked him to do, and that was free Gemma. I did want to note that I think it's really cool that we got such a kind of compounded version and look at all of these relationships that we really haven't gotten a chance to explore in such a small amount of time. We get Outie Mark finding Innie Gemma in the Cold Harbor room in the 25th room. Lots of funny moments in this kind of sequence of events as well, which I thought was really, really great for this show. And then we go to the elevator. They're both outies for a very brief, very, very brief second, and all is right in the world. And then Gemma is returned to being an outie. Mark is returned to being an innie, and they walk through and they finally get to the hallway and these make these decisions. And now Gemma, as a true outie, is seeing innie Mark and kind of this new evolution of what their relationship is. And of course, innie Mark has no attachment really to Gemma. He knows her as Miss Casey, and he has a much more deeper connection and passion with Helly. I think this is a great decision for the show. I think this is a great choice for Mark. I think narratively, this makes season 3 obviously very enticing, because where do we go after the next 10 seconds that Mark is so concerned with Helly? He's not thinking about the future. He's not thinking about how anybody is going to catch them or what is going to happen to Lumen or any of the consequences or retributions of the actions that he has taken. He is thinking about running down that hallway with Helly. And of course, again, like kind of introduce this French New Wave stylistic version of this show, the freeze frames, the snap zooms, the slow-mos. I loved all of it. I thought it was really great. I think overall, a great episode of Severance. I don't think the hierarchy of TV power has changed by any means. I don't think that we are witnessing television history here, like a lot of people are saying that we are. I think we just got a really, really great season of television, and that's okay too. The season as a whole was full of ups and downs, and I think it really stumbled in the middle of the season to kind of identify what it was trying to do, but it regained some of that identity in the back couple of episodes, so I do give it credit for that. I think overall, again, a really great season of television. It has not changed the television landscape. We don't need to worry about TV never being the same again. I don't think Severance, by 2 seasons, is going into the kind of TV canon of the last 50 years by any means whatsoever at all. I think we just got a really great season of television that ended on a very enticing, interesting, bold decision. Let's quickly do the winner and the loser of this episode of Severance before I answer the famed question, is TV so back? Now, the winner of last week's episode of Severance was in fact Dylan. He quit. It was really exciting. Things were moving in a cool direction for him. Not so fun this episode for Dylan, I gotta say. Ended on a little bit of a sad note for my guy, which is kind of a bummer. I will say the winner of episode 10 of Severance is, in fact, Mark S. All around great stuff. I think from a performance perspective, a lot of depth, a lot of narrative kind of intricacies that have finally been opened up and answered, and we kind of arrive at this new version of Mark, which I think is really fun, so definitely won the episode there. The loser of last week's episode was Irv and Bert. Now, rumor has it that the Irv and Bert storyline and relationship is not through. There's a very purposeful reason that Irv was not featured in this finale, so that is very interesting moving into season 3, which I hope does not take 3 years to get to. But the loser of the season finale of season 2 of Severance is, in fact, Rickon. Where the fuck is Rickon? What the fuck is going on with this guy? Where is my guy? Where is Rickon? Big annoyance here that we just never revisited this. Again, I think that kind of harkens back to what my biggest complaint of this season is the fact that we're asking so many questions and we're getting so big and we're never revisiting some of those. And it puts a lot of stress on future seasons to then go back and answer these questions. And I don't like that. So I think we have lost there as a whole. Rickon, loser of this episode. Bummer. Is TV so back? Yes, I will say yes. TV is in fact so back because we got a very effective and impressive and entertaining final episode of season 2 of Severance. Although the season overall was quite rocky, I will hand it that this episode was very good. Again, there's a caveat to it. The hierarchy of TV power has not changed. We have not witnessed history 2 seasons into Severance. It is a very good show that is very interesting, that had its ups and downs this season, that I think a lot of people are just really obsessed with. And that's okay. You can be, and I'm happy for you if that is the case, but this is not changing the landscape of television. So yes, TV is so back, but it's not anywhere that it hasn't been before. What did you think of the season finale of season 2 of Severance? Drop a comment below and let me know what you thought of the episode and what you thought of the season as a whole. And if you think it'll take longer or shorter than 3 years to get the next season of Severance, because fingers crossed, it does not take 3 years. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell so you are notified every single time that I do upload a new movie or TV review. You can also follow me on Letterboxd for all of my movie musings and thoughts and ideas over there. And I will see you in the next video.